I wasn't expecting much. Just a little note, a sticky tab, maybe even a smiley face in the corner of the envelope. But what arrived was stiff, sterile, and as cold as the paper it was printed on. Mr. and Mrs. Jameson Cordell request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter Tessa. And somewhere, buried near the bottom in smaller print than the venue's dress code, was the name I had raised for 2 decades, Leo Blake. No dir Cassandra. No, can't wait to see you there. No mention that I, the woman who once pulled 2 jobs to keep a roof over Leo's head, was even the sister of the groom. Just a single invitation, sealed in a generic cream envelope with my name misspelled on the front. I stared at it for a long time, too long, and I told myself not to read into it. They were just busy. Wedding stress. Maybe the planner sent these.
But something in my gut twisted.
I placed the card down gently on the coffee table beside the gift I had spent hours wrapping. A silver locket with our mother's initials engraved on the back. The one Leo used to play with when he was teething. The only heirloom we had left after the fire. I chose it carefully, lovingly. Not because I thought Tessa would appreciate it, but because Leo would know what it meant. At least I thought he would. The wedding was set in Vermont, at some vineyard estate Tessa's family had connections to. I had wired money toward the deposit months ago when Leo called in a panic because Tessa really wanted something elevated, not just a city hall thing. I paid. No questions asked. Because that's what big sisters do, right? I arrived 3 days early. I'd taken time off from my firm. Cassandra Blake Interiors wasn't a small business anymore, but I made the space. I bought a soft mauve dress, had my hair trimmed, and even treated myself to a manicure. I told myself this wasn't just a wedding. It was a celebration. Of him. Of us. Of everything we'd survived. I didn't need to be the center of attention. I didn't want a spotlight. Just a seat. A real one. A glimpse of my brother at the altar, his eyes sparkling like they used to when he was 6 and proud of himself for tying his shoes. But as I stood outside the vineyard gates, waiting for someone to let me in, a strange chill settled in my chest. A young woman in all black, clipboard in hand, headset askew, peeked up from her tablet and asked flatly, "Name?" "Cassandra Blake, sister of the groom." She typed something, frowned, then tilted the tablet slightly. "I don't see you on the bridal party list. Or the seating chart." She didn't apologize. "I'm sure it's an oversight," I said, keeping my voice even. "Leo knows I'm coming." Her brows lifted for half a second. "You can take a general guest badge for now. Someone will direct you later." Later never came. I wandered the venue alone, weaving through clusters of florists arranging garlands and staff rolling barrels of wine past chandeliers that didn't belong in a barn. Everything gleamed. Gold cutlery, silk ribbons, crystal drink dispensers filled with imported elderflower lemonade. Every corner of the estate whispered elevated. I paused at the entrance to the reception hall, scanning the rows of round tables dressed in ivory linen and tall taper candles. I looked for my name. Nothing. Not one place card that read Cassandra. Not at the head table. Not at any table. Not even tucked beside the kitchen entrance where they usually seat relatives with toddlers and exes. I turned to the woman who had scanned me in at the gate. She was now barking orders into her earpiece about gluten-free canapés. I waited until she noticed me. She didn't. "Excuse me," I said, as politely as I could muster. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm the groom's sister. I don't see my seat." She blinked at me, the way someone might blink at a woman claiming to be a lost duchess. "I'll check with Tessa," she said flatly. "Just wait here, ma'am." She disappeared through the double doors, her headset bouncing. I waited. 2 servers passed me with trays of shrimp cocktail, laughing under their breath. Someone spilled balsamic glaze on the welcome table. Still I waited. When she returned, she didn't meet my eyes. "Sorry, ma'am," she said, smoothing the crease of her dress. Tessa said, "We've made alternative arrangements for your comfort. Would you mind following me, please?" My heart thudded once, hard and slow. My comfort? I followed her past the manicured rows of chairs set up for the ceremony, past the champagne station, and into a side hallway. The corridor smelled like chafing fuel and oven grease. A door swung open ahead of us, and behind it, the heat and clatter of the kitchen. This way. She led me into a corner. Not a room. Not even a proper area. A folding chair stood crooked between two industrial trash bins, one of them leaking. On the seat was a wrinkled napkin. That was it. This is... I couldn't finish. A temporary setup, she said quickly. We just didn't want to disrupt the visual symmetry of the reception. Tessa was really specific about the aesthetic.
You understand, right? The vibe.
Photos and all.
Ist sehr her.
My ears buzzed. The scent of reheated marinara hung in the air like insult. From this angle, if I leaned to the side, I could catch a sliver of the dance floor through the swinging kitchen doors. A glimpse of fairy lights, someone adjusting a microphone. Tessa sends her thanks, the woman added, and turned on her heel. That was it. No apology. No effort to move me. No attempt to make it right. I stood alone in that cramped corner, my mauve dress brushing against the grease-stained wall. The chair wobbled as I sat. I didn't feel like Cassandra Blake, interior designer, sister of the groom. I felt like a service worker on break, invisible, disposable, inconvenient. Through the cracked door I saw Leo. He looked handsome, navy suit, that familiar boyish smile he hadn't worn since he was 15.
He was laughing.
Laughing as he posed with Tessa's parents. Clinking glasses. Her mother in a pearl-encrusted gown, her father giving a toast to the happy couple who brought both families together. Brought together. I blinked hard. My vision blurred. But not from tears, from disbelief. There were no signs of me out there. No mention in the program. No photo of us on the collage board. Not even the locket I brought. I later spotted it shoved near the gift table, unwrapped, half covered by wrapping paper from another guest. I heard someone say, "Oh, that's the sister?" I thought she was skipping the ceremony. Tessa didn't want anyone off-brand. Off-brand. As if I were a piece of furniture that didn't match the curated design. As if I didn't belong in a room I helped pay for. My phone buzzed. A group text from some distant cousin. "This wedding is insane. Tessa's mom is killing it." Another buzz. "Hope you're enjoying everything. Tessa worked so hard to make it perfect."
Perfect.
I locked my phone. And for the first time in years, after all the nights I stayed up to help him with college essays, all the hospital visits, all the birthdays I planned on a waitress's budget, I didn't feel like his sister. I felt like the help. The kitchen door kept swinging, creaking slightly, then thudding shut, each time a server pushed through with trays of lamb lollipops or mini quiches, drinks balanced on silver. Each time. I caught another slice of the celebration I was funding but wasn't part of. I adjusted my seat. The metal legs scraped against the concrete floor, loud and hollow. A smear of something gravy, maybe, clung to the toe of my shoe. I didn't bother to wipe it off. I looked down at my hands. Manicured, pale pink polish still perfect. The same hands that signed the catering check last month. The same ones that held Leo's forehead when he was 7 and burning up with fever. Back then, I was everything to him. I was the only one. I shifted in my seat again. It creaked. A young man in a catering uniform passed by. He looked barely 20, acne still dotting his chin. He paused when he saw me. "Oh, are you comfortable, ma'am? I can bring you a drink? Maybe a plate?" I blinked at him. He was the first person all day to even ask. "No, thank you," I said. My voice came out softer than I expected. Controlled, but tired. He hesitated. They told us to keep this space clear, but I think they meant like supplies, not guests. I offered a tight smile. "Don't worry." Apparently, I clash with the theme. His cheeks flushed. "Sorry, I didn't." "It's fine," I said, before he had to fumble for more guilt. "It's not your fault." He nodded and left, and I sank back into my seat. I could still hear the music. A string quartet this time, something upbeat. Then laughter, clinking glasses, a burst of applause. Her voice echoed faintly through the swinging door. "Tessa, Making a toast. She sounded polished. Performative, rehearsed. Like she'd practiced in front of a mirror, or maybe just didn't have anything real to say. Leo, she gushed, you've made me the happiest woman alive. And to my wonderful parents, thank you for giving me the dream wedding. Every detail, every flower, every single perfect touch, it was magical. No mention of me. I was the one who paid for the flowers. I was the one who wrote the first deposit to the planner. I even covered the emergency tent when the forecast showed rain. I still had the email.
Tessa.
Can you help cover this last piece, Cass? It's just a little extra for peace of mind. Just a little extra. Always a little extra. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the ceremony program. Cream cardstock, gold foil lettering, elegant cursive. I skimmed through the names. Tessa's parents, her bridesmaids, Leo's groomsmen, the officiant. Nowhere did it mention Cassandra Blake. Not even a footnote. I stared at the ink until the letters blurred. The corner of the program trembled in my fingers. I didn't cry. I don't think I could have if I tried. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was something sharper. Cleaner. Like a hairline crack spreading through glass. Silent. Invisible. But irreversible. I folded the program carefully and slipped it back into my clutch. Then I smoothed my dress, sat straighter in the chair, and let the heat from the kitchen ovens roll across my back like waves. Each burst of warmth reminded me I was still here. Still solid. Still real. More real than the wedding happening just on the other side of the wall. A server came by with a plate of hors d'oeuvres, 3 sad olives, a hunk of brie, and a triangle of toast. She placed it gently on the makeshift table beside me. I'm so sorry, she whispered. This isn't fair. I looked at her, a girl no older than Tessa. She didn't have to say anything more. I nodded just once. Thank you. She walked away. Behind her, someone shouted to the bride and groom. A roar of applause followed, the floor shaking slightly under my feet from the collective stomp of joy. I didn't move. Because joy like that, joy that's built on exclusion, on silencing people, it doesn't last. I checked my phone. 26 unread messages from relatives. All of them were photos and videos. Leo and Tessa twirling in their first dance. The table settings. The cake cutting. The floral arch with golden lanterns I helped select over FaceTime. No one asked where I was. No one noticed the empty chair that was never set for me. And in that moment, I stopped asking for one. Let them have their spotlight. They thought I was invisible. They had no idea what I could take away. The smell of garlic and scorched bread clung to the back of my throat. I shifted again in the wobbling chair, my knees aching from the awkward angle. Somewhere outside, the DJ switched from classical to pop music, and the thump of bass vibrated through the kitchen floor. The kind of music you're supposed to lose yourself to. Not the kind you listen to through a crack in the wall like a forgotten stranger. I leaned back against the wall, staring at a patch of peeling paint near the fire extinguisher. It was easier to look at that than the flashing glimpses of Leo, laughing, dancing, twirling Tessa in the center of it all like they were starring in a movie. A movie I had helped finance. A movie I wasn't even an extra in. I pulled my phone out of my clutch, not sure why, habit, maybe, the urge to anchor myself to something. Another buzz. Another photo. This one was of the head table. Tessa's parents, her extended family, even old college roommates, all smiling, crystal glasses raised. At the center, Leo. His smile stretched so wide it didn't even look real. I zoomed in, searching for anything that felt familiar. There was no seat reserved for me. There was no spare chair left empty in my honor. There wasn't even a passing mention of the woman who had spent her entire adult life making sure Leo never missed a birthday cake or a warm coat or a chance at something better. I set the phone face down on my lap. The silence inside me wasn't calm. It was electric. Buzzing. Growing. Across the kitchen, a server was struggling with a tray of desserts. A towering stack of vanilla cupcakes with edible gold foil. One slipped off the tray and hit the floor with a wet, indecent splat. I stared at the ruined frosting, the glittering flecks of gold mixing into the dirty tile grout. And for some reason, not the seating, not the programs, not even Leo's blank indifference, that stupid cupcake broke something loose in me. Because the whole day was like that cupcake. A shimmering, beautiful lie on the outside, smashed and rotting the second you look too closely. I gripped the edges of my chair, breathing carefully through my nose.
In. Out.
I thought about the little sacrifices. Missing my senior prom because Leo had a fever. Skipping the chance to move to New York after college because Leo needed a stable home. Buying him his first used car. Trading in my own to afford it. None of it had been a burden then. It had been love.
Family.
But now it felt like a transaction that I had paid in full, only to be locked out of the store when it was time to redeem what I was owed. A text popped up on my screen. From Tessa.
Short. Brutal. Clinical.
Hey Cassandra. Just wanted to say thanks again for your contributions. Hope you're having a good time. Red heart. Contributions. Not presents. Not love. Contributions. Like a sponsor whose name they forgot to mention at the charity gala. My fingers tightened around the phone. The screen creaked slightly under the pressure. Then came the final blow. A server, nervous and sweating under his black vest, approached me holding a chipped white plate. On it, a sad, gray slab of chicken breast and a few limp green beans. I was told to bring you the vendor meal, he said almost apologetically. The couple wanted to keep plated service consistent inside. Vendor meal. They didn't even think of me as family. I was a line item, an afterthought. A service to be fed on the cheap and tucked out of sight. I stared at the plate. For one sharp, wild second, I considered throwing it across the room, hearing it shatter against the industrial sink. I pictured storming onto the dance floor, hijacking the microphone, reading aloud every invoice I'd paid. The locket still tucked inside, my clutch felt heavy against my side, a weight tied to a version of Leo that no longer existed. But I didn't throw the plate. I didn't storm the stage. I did something much worse. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress one last time. I walked calmly out of the kitchen, past the swinging door, past the bartenders pouring champagne into fluted glasses. No one noticed me.
Good.
I found a quiet corner behind the main hall, tucked between two maintenance sheds. The cool night air rushed against my skin, lifting strands of hair from my face. And there, under the soft glow of fairy lights meant for someone else's perfect night, I pulled out my phone. 3 calls. 3 short, surgical calls. First to the florist. Please cancel the delivery scheduled for tomorrow's brunch. Full cancellation. No substitutions. Then to the event planner. We will no longer need the fireworks show at 10 p.m. Please terminate the contract. No further payment will be processed. Finally, to the late-night cocktail vendor. Close the bar after the dinner service. Second shift canceled. Immediate effect. Each voice on the other end protested, fumbled, apologized. I didn't explain. I didn't rage. I simply confirmed, thanked them, and ended the calls.
Clean.
Quiet. Irrevocable. As I slipped my phone back into my clutch, the music swelled behind me, a rising wave of celebration, joy, and oblivion. Let them dance. Let them toast. They had no idea the clock had already started ticking down to their perfect night's unraveling. And I wasn't going to lift a finger to stop it.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in the stiff hotel bed, still in my mauve dress, staring at the ceiling as the fan spun lazy circles overhead. My body was exhausted, aching in places I hadn't known could ache, but my mind buzzed like a live wire. Every blink brought flashes. A Leo laughing as Tessa's father clapped him on the back. Tessa posing for photos beneath the chandelier I paid for. The folding chair by the kitchen door. The phone on my nightstand blinked with notifications. I didn't check it. I knew exactly what I'd find. Confusion, outrage, scrambling.
Panic.
And for once, it wasn't my problem to fix. The first voicemail came around midnight. Leo, frantic. Cass, where are you? People are freaking out. The brunch flowers never showed up. The band says they're leaving after the first set. What's going on? Please call me. Then one from Tessa's mother. A shrill whisper edged with venom. This is highly unprofessional. Guests are asking questions. We expected better from you. Better. As if I owed them anything more. As if erasing me from their fairy tale wasn't already the cruelest betrayal. I sat up around 4 a.m., the pale blue light of dawn starting to creep under the blackout curtains. I opened my email. Dozens of unread messages. Vendor confirmations of cancellation. Refund denials. Contract termination notices. Each subject line was another small rebellion. I scrolled past them until I found it, the budget spreadsheet I had meticulously maintained for over a year. Line after line, the receipts of my sacrifice. $5,000 for the upgraded venue. $2. $200 for the custom floral arch. $1,750 for the live band. $600 for the monogrammed cocktail napkins Tessa insisted on. The numbers blurred together after a while. But then, buried at the bottom, 2 new charges caught my eye. Charges I didn't authorize. A tasting event at the winery. A spa day for the bridal party. Both billed to the same credit card I had opened just for wedding expenses, the one only Leo had access to. I clicked over to Venmo, half dreading, half knowing what I'd find. And there it was. A public transaction from Tessa to one of her bridesmaids, complete with champagne emojis. Leo's sisters covering everything. Might as well go big. Hashtag wedding vibes. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just forgetfulness. It was entitlement. A belief that I would always pick up the check. That I would always be the one smiling in the shadows. Asking for nothing, demanding even less. I sat back against the headboard and stared at the ceiling. Not crying. Not raging. Something else. Something harder. Something cleaner.
Clarity.
At 6 a.m., I packed my things. I left the dress hanging in the closet like a shed skin. Pulled on jeans and a soft sweater. Tied my hair back in a loose braid. At the front desk, I handed over my keycard without a word. The young clerk glanced up, opened his mouth to say something, maybe a thank you for staying, or a polite platitude. I didn't give him the chance. I walked out into the cool morning air, the rising sun throwing streaks of gold across the empty parking lot. The silence felt different now. Not heavy. Not suffocating.
Freeing.
The drive home was long, winding through sleepy little towns and stretches of farmland just starting to bloom with spring green. I rolled the windows down halfway and let the wind tangle through my hair. No music. No news. Just the road and the hum of tires against asphalt. Somewhere along the highway, my phone buzzed again. I ignored it. Let them spin their stories. Let them scramble for explanations. Let them realize, slowly, achingly, that the world they had so carefully curated was beginning to crumble, not with a bang, but with 1,000 small absences. The flowers that never arrived. The music that stopped too soon. The bar that closed an hour after dinner. The echo of a party built on stolen affection and invisible hands. I pulled into my driveway just after 10 a.m. The roses I had planted last year, Leo's favorite yellow ones, were in full bloom. I didn't stop to admire them. Instead, I headed straight to the guest room. Opened the bottom drawer of the old oak dresser. There, tucked away under stacks of tax forms and expired warranties, was a red leather file folder. A relic of a different life. I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened it carefully. Inside were the documents I had saved without even knowing why. A guardianship order from when I took Leo in after our parents' accident. Old birthday cards he had made me in crayon. A letter from our mother, written during her last hospital stay, never mailed but kept in an envelope marked for Cassandra. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled the letter free. The paper was thin, fragile with age. I unfolded it carefully and began to read. The letter was written in our mother's careful, slanted script, the ink slightly faded but still clear. My dearest Cassandra, if you're reading this, it means you found the courage to finally stop carrying everyone else's weight on your back. I need you to know something I didn't have the heart to say while I was alive. My fingers tightened on the paper. I could hear my own breath, steady and sharp in the quiet house. When your father and I died, I knew you would feel obligated to take care of Leo. You always had the bigger heart. You always wanted to be the strong one. But honey, Leo was never your responsibility. He was never meant to be your second chance at a family. You already were enough. You already were the family. I closed my eyes, letting the words settle into my bones. If there comes a day when Leo forgets that, when he forgets who stood in the gap when no one else would, I hope you remember what I'm telling you now. You were not made to be anyone's afterthought. You were made to shine. Tears finally prickled at the corners of my eyes, but they didn't fall. Because this time, the ache wasn't from sadness. It was from something else. Something stronger. Recognition. I had spent years being the scaffold for someone else's life. The invisible support beams holding up dreams that had no room for me in their blueprints. And now, I wasn't just letting go of Leo. I was reclaiming Cassandra. I set the letter down carefully and stood. The morning sunlight was spilling through the front windows, casting golden stripes across the hardwood floors. The house felt different. Not empty. Not lonely. Open. Ready. I walked to the living room and looked around. Every photo of Leo, his graduation picture, his first day of school, his high school prom, stared back at me from the walls and shelves. Testaments to the years I had spent documenting a life that no longer needed me in it. I pulled one down, then another, and another. One by one, I packed them into a box labeled memories, not obligations. No anger, no bitterness, just a quiet, steady unraveling of the altar I had built without realizing it. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Another call from Leo. I didn't answer. I let it ring out into the empty room, the sound brittle and small against the new silence. Then another buzz. A text. Please talk to me. Tessa's freaking out. Everyone's asking questions. You're making this harder than it has to be. Harder. As if my existence, my disappointment, was the inconvenience, not the betrayal. I sat down at the dining table, opened my laptop, and began typing. Not to Leo. Not to Tessa. To the people who actually mattered. The florist. The caterer. The band coordinator. The brunch venue. Simple, direct emails. Please confirm the cancellation of remaining services. Thank you for your understanding. Due to unforeseen changes, we will not require further support. Full final payments withheld, per contract terms. Each click of send felt like lifting a stone from my chest. I didn't need their permission. I didn't need their forgiveness. I only needed my own. Around noon, I made myself a simple meal, toasted bread, avocado, a fried egg, and ate it sitting by the window. No ceremony, no performance. Just me, breathing in the life I was starting to rebuild. Outside, the roses Leo once loved bobbed gently in the breeze, vibrant and unapologetically alive. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I opened Facebook, just for a moment. The wedding photos were flooding in. Tessa's perfectly curated shots under the golden archway. The bridal party posing around the vintage wine barrels. A Leo lifting Tessa into the air as sparklers exploded behind them. Only something was wrong. The brunch photos were missing. The late-night dancing? Cut short. The epic fireworks display promised in the invitations? Never happened. Guests were starting to whisper. Comments were being left under the pictures. Where was the brunch? Why did the band leave so early? The vibe changed after the first dance, didn't it? I smiled to myself. Let them wonder. Let them piece it together like a puzzle missing half its corners. I didn't need to explain. Their perfect day was crumbling from the inside out, because they had built it on the hollow foundation of someone else's sacrifice. And I had simply walked away. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee, feeling the strange, electric thrill of a new beginning. Not revenge, not cruelty, just release. The kind they never even saw coming. The kind they would feel for a long, long time. The knock came just after 2 p.m. Sharp, insistent. Not a stranger's knock. Not the tentative tap of a delivery guy. No, this was a knock that carried weight. Expectation. Desperation. I didn't rush. I finished folding the dish towel over the oven handle. Straightened the stack of clean plates on the counter. Took a long sip from my coffee. Only then did I walk to the door. Through the frosted glass, I could make out Leo's silhouette. Still tall. Still broad-shouldered. Still recognizable. But somehow smaller. I let him knock again. 3 more raps, harder this time. Finally, I opened the door, just wide enough to lean against the frame. "Hey," Leo said, voice low, sheepish. I didn't move to let him in. For a moment, he stood there awkwardly, holding a box. His face was drawn, the skin under his eyes bruised from lack of sleep.
Good.
Let him feel the weight, for once. "Can I come in?" he asked after a beat. I tilted my head slightly. "Why?" He blinked, caught off guard. We need to talk." I nodded slowly. "You're right, but not inside." I stepped onto the porch, closing the door gently behind me. The spring air smelled like wet earth and blooming lilacs. Somewhere, a lawnmower buzzed lazily in the distance. Leo shifted on his feet. "I don't even know where to start," he said, voice cracking. I stayed silent. Let him flounder. Let him do the heavy lifting for once. "I know you're mad," he rushed on. "I get it, okay? The seating thing, that wasn't supposed to happen like that." I raised an eyebrow. Wasn't supposed to? Or wasn't supposed to get caught? He winced. "Look, it was Tessa's idea." "She thought," she said. He stopped, swallowed. "She said you'd understand. That you'd be fine sitting out of the way." I laughed, short and bitter. "Out of the way," I repeated. "That's one way to phrase it." Leo looked down at the box in his hands. "I brought your gift back. I'm sorry no one gave it to you properly." He held it out like a peace offering. The silver locket I had chosen. Still beautifully wrapped. Still untouched. I didn't take it. I didn't even look at it. "You know," I said quietly, "when Mom got sick, she made me promise something." He looked up, wary. "I promised I would always put you first," I said. "Even when it cost me everything." Leo's throat bobbed in a hard swallow. "And I did," I continued. "I put you through school. Paid your rent when you couldn't find a job after college. Cheered for you when no one else showed up. I made every single sacrifice without ever asking you for anything except..." I paused. "Except to remember who stood behind you." Tears sprang to his eyes.
Good.
Let him feel it. "I do remember," he whispered hoarsely. "I do, Cass. I got caught up. The wedding. The pressure." I shook my head.
No, Leo.
"You didn't get caught up. You made a choice." He froze. "You chose to let someone else erase me from your life. You chose convenience over loyalty. You chose a curated photo album over the person who gave you everything." He said nothing.
Because what could he say?
The truth hung between us, undeniable and ugly. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I just wanted the day to be perfect," he said helplessly. "I thought it would be easier if you stayed out of sight." I smiled then, a real smile, sharp and clean. "You got your perfect day," I said. "Now you get to live with how you made it happen." He sagged against the porch railing, defeated. "I'm sorry," he said again, voice barely above a whisper.
"I'm sure you are," I said.
"But sorry doesn't rebuild broken things. Sorry doesn't unseat someone you've already pushed behind the kitchen doors. Sorry doesn't erase a lifetime of being unseen." Leo shifted, awkward. "Maybe we can fix this? I'll talk to Tessa. We can invite you over, have dinner, just us." I cut him off with a soft, almost gentle voice. "I don't want to be patched back into your life, like a hole in a jacket you only remember when the wind gets too cold." He flinched. I took a small step back. "You made it clear, Leo," I said. "You chose the people you wanted at your table." I nodded toward the yard, blooming wildly with yellow roses. "I'm choosing mine, too." He opened his mouth again, maybe to beg, maybe to argue. I didn't care. I closed the door softly between us.
No Islam.
No drama. Just a clean, deliberate ending. The kind you don't come back from. Inside, the house was warm and still. The box with the photos sat untouched in the corner. The space on the walls where his pictures used to hang looked brighter, somehow. Freer. I breathed in deeply, filling my lungs with the quiet. Then I set a new table, one that didn't require me to shrink to fit someone else's idea of worth. My seat wasn't next to the kitchen anymore. It was wherever I decided to stand. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows like liquid gold. Warm, soft, forgiving. I woke without an alarm.
No urgent texts. No frantic voicemails.
Just the quiet hum of a house that finally felt like it belonged to me again. I brewed coffee slowly, letting the rich aroma fill the kitchen.
No rush. No noise.
I poured myself a cup and walked barefoot out onto the back porch. The roses were wild now, untamed, brilliant against the soft green of the lawn. Yellow, orange, pink. No florist's arrangement.
No curated bouquet.
Just beauty, blooming without permission. Without apology. I pulled a yellow notepad from the kitchen drawer and began writing. Not a to-do list. Not chores. Not obligations. A guest list. Not for a wedding. Not for a gala. Not for anything that required a folding chair tucked behind swinging doors. For me, a dinner. A celebration. Of survival. Of self. I wrote down names one by one. Marla, my mentor who believed in my design work before I did. Clara, my best friend from college, who once drove 6 hours in the rain to help me move apartments after a breakup. Mr. Henderson, my neighbor, who always snowplowed my driveway first before touching his own.
Adana.
The bookstore owner who always saved me first editions without me even asking. People who saw me. People who didn't need a seating chart to decide whether I belonged. I spent the next few days preparing. Not for spectacle.
For joy.
I went to the farmer's market early on Saturday, picking out heirloom tomatoes still warm from the sun. Basil so fresh the scent clung to my fingers. Baguettes that crackled when I squeezed them. I picked out a blue and white checkered tablecloth. Simple.
Bright.
I arranged wildflowers from my own garden in mismatched mason jars. No assigned seats.
No aesthetic themes.
Just open chairs. Open hearts. When the evening came, laughter arrived with it. Real laughter, not polite chuckles between overpriced canapes. Full-bodied, tear-inducing, shoulder-shaking laughter that filled the air like music. Marla brought wine. Clara brought dessert. Mr. Henderson brought terrible jokes and a cherry pie so sweet it hurt your teeth. We ate until our bellies ached. We toasted under string lights. I hung myself. Their glow gentle and imperfect and beautiful. And somewhere between second helpings and third glasses of wine, Clara raised her glass.
To Cassandra, she said.
For finally building a table where she doesn't have to beg for a seat. Glasses clinked. I laughed, real, unguarded, free. Much later, after everyone had left and the dishes sat stacked haphazardly in the sink, I wandered back out onto the porch. The night was cool. Stars punched into the navy sky like tiny promises. I sipped the last of my wine and closed my eyes. I thought about Leo. About how small he looked standing on my porch, clutching a gift he had already thrown away long before he handed it back to me. I thought about Tessa, building a kingdom from borrowed walls and stolen affection. I thought about the folding chair in the kitchen, the chipped plate, the cold chicken breast, the smell of scorched marinara. And I smiled, because they had given me a gift they never intended. Freedom. Freedom from being needed, but never celebrated. Freedom from being the silent architect of someone else's success. Freedom from shrinking myself to fit their table. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't broken. I was something they would never understand. Whole. My phone buzzed once on the table inside. I didn't rush to check it. Maybe it was Leo. Maybe it was an apology he had rehearsed 1,000 times, but still didn't know how to mean. Maybe it was silence. Either way, it didn't matter. I had already answered the only question that ever mattered. Would I keep begging for a place?
No.
Never again. I finished my wine and blew out the candles on the table, one by one. The smoke curled into the air like soft, silver ribbons. When I stepped back into my house, my home, the air smelled like rosemary, baked bread, and something even sweeter.
Peace.
Not given. Not granted. Not negotiated.
Owned. Claimed. Lived.
The folding chair behind the kitchen door was a memory now. A scar, not a wound. A reminder of the day I chose myself. Not because anyone else finally saw me, but because I decided I was worth seeing. And this time, the only table I needed to sit at was the one I had built with my own hands. At the head. Always.